In the world of modern relationships, one of the most surprising yet undeniable truths is this. Women are deeply drawn to men who know when to detach. Detachment doesn't mean ignoring her, disrespecting her, or playing childish games. Instead, it means a man who is in control of his emotions, who values his own peace, and who refuses to chase love at the cost of his dignity. Women naturally feel a stronger attraction toward a man who does not depend on their validation, who does not fall apart when she pulls away, and who continues to live with confidence and purpose, regardless of what is happening in the relationship. When a man detaches in a healthy way, he creates a sense of mystery, strength, and emotional stability that many women find irresistible. Most men think that being overly available, constantly texting, and giving endless attention will win a woman over, but often the opposite happens. When a man gives too much too fast, he loses his value in her eyes. She feels no challenge, no excitement, and no curiosity. But when a man steps back and prioritizes himself, women naturally begin to notice his absence, wonder about his life, and question what changed. Detachment triggers something powerful in a woman's mind. She begins to see him as a man with standards, a man who is not desperate, a man who is confident in silence. Instead of chasing her, he chases his goals. Instead of begging for attention, he invests in himself. This shift changes the entire dynamic because now she sees him as someone she can admire, respect, and genuinely desire. Women can't resist a man who has emotional discipline. Someone who doesn't react to every mood swing, who doesn't crumble when she tests him, and who doesn't need approval to feel worthy. Such a man stands out because he is rare. He shows that he can love without losing himself, he can care without becoming needy, and he can commit without sacrificing his self-respect. Detachment is not about pulling away to punish her. It's about pulling back to protect your energy, to regain clarity, and to let her meet you halfway. A man who detaches signals that his life is full, balanced, and driven, qualities that women find deeply attractive. And the truth is, when a woman feels that a man is strong enough to walk away, she becomes far more interested in holding on. This introduction sets the foundation for understanding why women are magnetically drawn to men who detach, and how emotional independence becomes one of a man's greatest strengths in relationships. One of the biggest reasons women can't resist a man who detaches is because detachment is a direct display of confidence. Confidence is not about loud words, showing off, or trying to prove something. Real confidence is quiet, calm, and unshakable. When a man detaches, he shows that he is emotionally stable, that he trusts himself, and that he is not controlled by fear, anxiety, or desperation. This level of emotional maturity is something women notice instantly, even if she never says it out loud. Most men make the mistake of thinking that to keep a woman interested, they must always be present, be available 24/7, reply instantly, and constantly reassure her. But this constant presence often backfires. It signals insecurity, eagerness, and sometimes even dependency. Women do not connect deeply with men who need attention just to feel good about themselves. Instead, they feel drawn to men who value themselves enough to step back, to take space, and to stay grounded even when things become emotionally intense. A man who practices healthy detachment sends a powerful message without saying a word. I want you, but I don't need you to survive. This single line changes everything. Women are incredibly perceptive when it comes to emotional energy. They can feel when a man is confident in his silence, when he is comfortable with distance, and when he is secure enough not to react impulsively. This stability creates a magnetic pull. A woman feels safe around a man who can manage his emotions and maintain control during conflict or misunderstandings. She begins to trust him more because he doesn't crumble under pressure. Detachment also prevents overinvestment. When a man invests too much too early, emotionally, mentally, or physically, he unknowingly removes the natural tension that creates attraction. But a detached man controls his pace. He gives attention, but not all of it. He shows interest, but maintains balance. This makes every gesture, every message, every moment with him feel more valuable and meaningful. Another reason detachment is attractive is because it demonstrates self-respect. A man with self-respect does not beg, chase, or force someone to stay. He knows his worth. He knows what he brings to the table. He is willing to walk away from a situation that doesn't honor his value. This inner strength is extremely compelling because it shows that his identity isn't tied to whether a woman stays or leaves. Women admire men who have their own life, their own goals, their own routine, and their own purpose. A detached man doesn't cancel his life for someone else. He balances love with ambition. He nurtures connections without losing focus on his growth. This independence shows maturity, a trait every woman craves in a man. Ultimately, detachment highlights the difference between a boy and a man. Boys react, men respond. Boys cling, men stand tall. Boys need validation, men validate themselves. Women can't resist a man who shows through his actions that he is complete on his own, because that is exactly the kind of man she can trust, admire, and fall deeply for. One of the strongest psychological triggers of attraction is mystery, and nothing creates mystery more naturally than a man who knows how to detach. Women are naturally curious creatures. They think deeply, analyze behavior, and read emotional signals. When a man pulls back in a calm, controlled, and confident way, it activates a woman's curiosity in a powerful way. She starts asking herself questions she never thought about before. What is he thinking? Why isn't he chasing me? Has he changed? Is he talking to someone else? These thoughts create emotional tension, an essential ingredient of attraction. Most men mistakenly remove all mystery from themselves. They overshare, over-explain, send long texts, and constantly express their feelings. While honesty is important, giving too much too soon takes away the natural space where curiosity grows. But when a man detaches, he gives a woman something priceless, the space to think about him. Attraction doesn't grow in constant presence. It grows in absence, in silence, in the moments when she wonders what he might be doing. This doesn't mean disappearing completely or playing childish games. Healthy detachment simply means not trying to force connection. It means allowing the natural rhythm of a relationship to develop without pressure. When a man stops trying too hard, a woman begins to lean in naturally. Detachment also breaks predictable patterns. Humans crave the unexpected. If a man always replies instantly, always says yes, always agrees, always shows the same behavior, there is no excitement. Predictability kills attraction, but when a man creates subtle unpredictability by not always being available, because he is genuinely busy with his life and goals, she feels a renewed sense of interest. She begins to appreciate his presence more because it is no longer guaranteed. Mystery doesn't mean hiding your life. It means not giving everything away at once. A detached man reveals his personality slowly, allowing a woman to discover him layer by layer. This slow discovery process is what keeps her emotionally invested. She wants to understand him, know him, get closer to him. She starts engaging more, texting more, initiating more, and showing more effort because she wants to figure him out. Women also admire men who aren't emotionally chaotic. When a man detaches, it shows that he is not controlled by impulse, insecurity, or fear. His calmness becomes alluring. His patience becomes attractive. His silence becomes meaningful. She begins to feel that he has depth, layers she wants to explore. The truth is, mystery is not something you create artificially. It's something that flows naturally when you stop chasing and start living your life. When you become a man with purpose, routine, discipline, and direction, your life becomes interesting. And an interesting man is always a mysterious man. A woman cannot resist a man she cannot fully predict. She cannot ignore a man who doesn't always explain himself, and she cannot stop thinking about a man who leaves room for curiosity. One of the most profound effects of detachment is that it shifts the power dynamics in a relationship. In most cases, when a man is overly invested, overly emotional, and overly available, the woman holds all the power, often without even realizing it. She knows he will always text first, always forgive easily, always chase, always wait, always adjust, and always try harder. But when a man detaches, the entire balance changes. Suddenly, she is no longer the one being pursued. She becomes the one doing the chasing. Detachment is powerful because it communicates something women instantly recognize. I am not afraid of losing you. This is one of the strongest positions a man can hold emotionally. When a man is not afraid to lose a woman, he naturally gains respect, value, and authority in the relationship. She begins to see him as someone who cannot be controlled through silence, mood swings, or emotional distance. He becomes a man who thinks independently, acts independently, and feels independently. Women are naturally drawn to strong emotional leaders. They don't want a man who becomes unstable when she pulls away. They want a man whose stability remains unchanged, with or without her presence. When a man detaches, he demonstrates leadership, not in a controlling way, but through emotional maturity. And nothing attracts a woman more than a man she respects. Detachment also stops a man from overgiving. Many men give too much attention, too much time, and too much emotional energy because they fear losing the woman. But when a man gives too much, he becomes predictable and loses his value in her eyes. Detachment corrects this imbalance by creating healthy space. Suddenly, he is no longer the one waiting for replies. She is. He is no longer obsessing over her reactions. She is. He is no longer adjusting his life around her. She begins adjusting around him. This shift is not about manipulation. It's about rewiring unhealthy patterns. Many relationships suffer because the man invests 80% and the woman invests only 20%. But when a man detaches, the investment levels begin to balance. She starts texting first. She starts showing concern. She starts making plans. She starts thinking about what she might lose. Detachment also shows a woman that her place in his life must be earned, not assumed. Too many women take men for granted when men give everything too quickly. But when a man shows that he can walk away, that he values himself, and that he won't beg for attention, she begins to appreciate him more deeply. She becomes careful with her words. She stops playing games. She treats him with more respect. Another major shift is emotional power. The person who is less reactive always has more control. When a man detaches, he stops reacting emotionally. He stops being triggered by small things. This calmness forces her to step up emotionally. She starts worrying about losing him because now he represents something rare. A man with discipline, patience, and strength. In the end, detachment doesn't just shift power, it restores balance. It creates a relationship where both people invest, both people try, and both people value each other. And it all begins with a man who decides to step back, breathe, and reclaim his emotional power. One of the most powerful reasons detachment makes women unable to resist a man is because detachment protects your emotional energy. Most men lose attraction, respect, and control in relationships because they give too much of themselves, emotionally, mentally, and sometimes even physically, without receiving the same level of effort in return. When a man overinvests, he drains his own energy while empowering the woman to take him for granted. But when a man detaches, he stops this emotional leakage and begins to protect the most valuable thing he has, his peace. Men often misunderstand love as self-sacrifice. They think caring too much is a sign of loyalty, replying instantly is a sign of devotion, and never saying no is a sign of commitment. But in reality, overgiving destroys attraction. It leaves you tired, drained, resentful, and dependent on her reactions for your happiness. Women sense this emotional dependency instantly, and nothing pushes them away faster. Detachment breaks this cycle. When a man detaches, he takes a step back, not to punish her, but to protect himself. He stops chasing, he stops over-explaining, he stops reacting emotionally. Instead, he returns his energy to himself. He focuses on his own goals, his routines, his growth, and his inner balance. This is when a woman begins to feel something shift inside her. She senses that his world does not revolve around her anymore, and this realization makes her more attentive, more curious, and more invested. Protecting your emotional energy also means not allowing a woman's moods to control your behavior. Many men lose their identity trying to please a woman who is confused, distant, or emotionally unpredictable. They try harder every time she pulls away. They offer more love when she offers less. But detachment stops this emotional chaos. It creates a boundary. Your emotions are yours to manage, and mine are mine. A man who protects his emotional energy becomes unshakable. He doesn't fall apart when she becomes distant. He doesn't panic when she stops texting. He doesn't beg when she becomes cold. Instead, he remains calm, composed, and centered. This calm strength is extremely attractive to women because it represents emotional maturity, something very few men possess. Detachment also helps a man see the relationship clearly. When you are too emotionally involved, you lose objectivity. You overlook red flags, you tolerate disrespect, you ignore your own needs, but when you detach, you gain clarity. You begin to understand what you deserve, what you will accept, and what you will never tolerate again. A man with clarity becomes powerful because he makes decisions based on standards, not emotions. Another important part of protecting your energy is not arguing unnecessarily. Detachment allows you to walk away from conflict instead of trying to win every argument. Women respect men who choose peace over drama, silence over shouting, and control over impulsive reactions. Ultimately, detachment makes your presence feel stronger because your energy is not scattered. You become a man who walks with purpose, speaks with confidence, and loves with boundaries. And a man who protects his emotional energy becomes the kind of man a woman cannot resist. One of the deepest psychological reasons women can't resist a man who detaches is because detachment increases your value. Human nature works in a very simple way. Whatever is easily available becomes less valuable. Whatever is rare becomes priceless. When a man is always present, always calling, always texting, always adjusting, always giving, he removes the element of rarity. She begins to feel like she can have him anytime she wants with little or no effort. And when effort disappears, value disappears. It's not that she stops liking him, it's that she stops appreciating him. She begins to see him as predictable, familiar, and emotionally dependent. But when a man detaches, everything changes. Suddenly, he is no longer a constant presence. He is no longer easy to reach. He is no longer predictable. His attention is no longer guaranteed. His time is no longer unlimited. This shift creates a psychological effect called perceived value increase. She starts thinking, He used to be so available. What happened? Why does he feel different now? Has he upgraded himself? Is another woman getting his attention now? These questions raise your value because now she sees that your time and energy have worth. You are no longer a man who gives everything without being asked. You become a man whose presence must be earned, not assumed. Detachment also increases value because it shows self-control. Most men react emotionally, especially when they like a woman. They chase, they panic, they overthink, they overtext. But a man who detaches shows emotional discipline. He shows that he can walk away from anything that disrupts his peace. He shows that he values himself more than the temporary comfort of her attention. Women admire this kind of man deeply. Why? Because a man who controls himself can control his life, and a man who controls his life becomes powerful. Another reason detachment increases your value is because it signals abundance mentality, not scarcity. A needy man behaves like she is his only option. A detached man behaves like he has options, even if he doesn't say it. Women sense this energy instantly. They feel the difference between a man who fears losing them and a man who knows he will be fine with or without them. The second type of man is infinitely more attractive. Detachment also makes you valuable because you stop overinvesting emotionally. When you give too much, too fast, she subconsciously thinks, if he is giving this much so easily, maybe his value isn't that high. Harsh truth, but real. But when you show restraint, self-control, and selective attention, she feels, wow, if he gives this little and still feels valuable, imagine how special it must be when he chooses to give more. Your value rises because your attention becomes a privilege, not a free service. Finally, detachment makes you valuable because it creates emotional contrast. Women appreciate men more when there is balance, strength with softness, distance with closeness, mystery with honesty. Detachment gives you that contrast naturally. In the end, a man who detaches becomes rare, and a rare man becomes unforgettable. A man who is unforgettable becomes irresistible. One of the most powerful psychological effects of detachment is that it forces a woman to self-reflect. When a man pulls back his energy, stops overgiving, and stops trying to fix everything, a woman is suddenly confronted with something she may have been ignoring all along, her own behavior. Most women never self-reflect when a man is constantly available. As long as he replies instantly, apologizes first, adjusts to her moods, and chases after her even when she pulls away, she feels no need to evaluate her actions. She has no reason to question whether she is being unfair, distant, disrespectful, or careless. Why would she? He is doing all the work. But detachment breaks this cycle. When a man detaches, he stops feeding the emotional imbalance. He stops rewarding bad behavior. He stops chasing silence with more attention. He stops justifying her coldness by trying harder. This sudden shift forces her to ask the questions she never asked before. Was I too distant? Did I take him for granted? Why isn't he reacting like before? Did I push him too far? Have I lost him? These questions are painful, but they are necessary. They create internal pressure, and this pressure is what leads to genuine self-awareness. A man who detaches gives her the space to see the relationship from a new angle. She begins to realize the emotional effort he used to put in. She starts noticing the love, the care, and the attention she once overlooked. Every moment he was available now becomes more meaningful because she is no longer receiving it automatically. Detachment also helps her understand her own patterns. Many women unconsciously test men, pulling away, acting cold, or giving mixed signals, just to see how he'll react. These tests are not always intentional. Sometimes they come from insecurity, fear, or habit. But when a man detaches, the test ends. She can no longer control the emotional temperature of the relationship. Instead, she feels the consequences of her actions. Another important part of self-reflection is emotional accountability. A detached man makes her responsible for her own feelings. Instead of him fixing every argument, she must now think about her role in the conflict. Instead of expecting him to always reach out first, she must decide if she truly values him enough to step forward. This accountability makes her more mature and emotionally grounded. Detachment also forces her to evaluate the depth of her feelings. When he stops giving, she must ask herself, do I really want him? Am I willing to lose him? Is he worth the effort? These questions are powerful because they reveal the truth. If her answer is yes, she begins to show more effort. She texts more. She tries more. She becomes warmer. She becomes more consistent. She becomes more careful with her actions. Finally, detachment forces her to meet you halfway. She realizes that relationships are not one-person efforts. She must invest too. She must give too. She must show that she cares just as much as you once did. And here lies the beauty. When a woman self-reflects, she grows. And when she grows, the relationship becomes stronger. The final and most powerful reason women can't resist a man who detaches is because detachment activates a woman's natural instinct to pursue. Many people believe only men are wired to chase, but that's not true. Women also have a deep, instinctive drive to move toward what they value, desire, and fear losing. The problem is, most men never give a woman the space or the emotional environment to activate this instinct, because they chase too hard themselves. When a man is always pursuing, always initiating, always proving, always reassuring, and always adjusting, a woman has no reason to step forward. She becomes passive, comfortable, and sometimes even indifferent. Why? Because she already has him. There is no challenge, no excitement, no risk, no fear of loss. But the moment a man detaches, everything changes. Detachment creates emotional space, and in that space, something awakens inside her. She begins to feel the quiet fear of losing him. She begins to feel an unexpected desire to reconnect. She starts wondering if she misjudged his value. This subtle emotional discomfort pushes her to take action. She texts first. She asks how he is. She initiates conversations. She becomes warmer, kinder, more attentive. This is not manipulation. This is biology. Women pursue what feels valuable. Women chase what feels rare. Women fight for what they don't want to lose. Detachment also removes the pressure she once felt. When a man chases too hard, she may feel overwhelmed, suffocated, or emotionally responsible for his happiness. But when he pulls back, she feels free to pursue at her own pace, in her own rhythm. And when a woman pursues voluntarily, the connection becomes deeper and more genuine. Another powerful effect is that detachment resets the emotional balance. Instead of him giving 80% and her giving 20%, detachment slowly brings the dynamic to 50/50. She begins to invest more effort, more time, and more emotion. She tries to understand him, get close to him, and rebuild what she feels slipping away. This is the moment when attraction becomes real again, because now it is mutual. Detachment also taps into a woman's desire for emotional challenge. Women are naturally drawn to men who are stable but not overly predictable, strong but not controlling, loving but not needy. Detachment positions a man exactly in this sweet spot. He becomes a challenge, not in an exhausting way, but in a healthy, attractive way. She wants to earn his attention again. She wants to feel chosen by him again. She wants to rebuild her position in his life. Finally, detachment gives her something priceless, the chance to show her love. When a man is always leading, always giving, always trying, she has no room to express her desire. But when he detaches, she finally gets the opportunity to step forward, to care, to initiate, to invest. And when a woman starts pursuing, everything changes. She becomes more committed, more affectionate, more respectful, more emotionally present, because now she is choosing you, not because she has to, but because she wants to. In the world of attraction, few strategies are as powerful as detachment. It is not about playing games, being cold, or avoiding a woman's needs. Instead, it is about creating balance, protecting your emotional energy, and demonstrating self-respect. When a man detaches in a healthy and controlled way, he naturally becomes more magnetic, more valuable, and more irresistible to women. Detachment works on multiple levels. First, it demonstrates confidence. A man who can step back without panic shows that he is secure in himself and in his worth. Confidence is magnetic because it signals stability and strength, qualities every woman desires in a partner. Women are drawn to men who are calm, composed, and in control of their emotions. When a man detaches, he automatically projects this aura of confidence, making him far more attractive than the man who constantly chases. Second, detachment creates mystery and curiosity. When a man is not constantly available, when he does not overshare, and when he maintains a life full of purpose and goals, he becomes intriguing. Women are naturally curious about men who do not reveal everything at once. This curiosity fuels attraction, making her think about him more, wonder about him, and even crave his attention. Mystery keeps the emotional connection alive, turning everyday interactions into something exciting and meaningful. Third, detachment shifts the power balance in the relationship. Men who overinvest emotionally often give the woman the upper hand without realizing it, but detachment restores equilibrium. By taking a step back, a man encourages a woman to meet him halfway, to invest effort, and to appreciate his presence. The relationship becomes less about chasing and more about mutual respect, admiration, and understanding. Fourth, detachment protects your emotional energy. A man who is always reacting, always giving, and always seeking validation quickly loses his vitality. Detachment allows him to prioritize his peace, focus on personal growth, and maintain emotional stability. Women are naturally drawn to men who are self-sufficient, balanced, and composed. Emotional stability is a silent but powerful magnet. Fifth, detachment increases perceived value. Anything rare and balanced feels precious. When a man is selective with his attention, careful with his energy, and disciplined with his actions, a woman begins to see him as someone worth pursuing. She starts to value him more because he is not a given. He is a prize that must be earned. Sixth, detachment forces self-reflection. When a man pulls back, a woman is encouraged to examine her behavior, her effort, and her investment in the relationship. She begins to notice what she may have taken for granted. This self-awareness often results in her trying harder, appreciating him more, and approaching the relationship with renewed effort. Finally, detachment activates a woman's natural pursuit instinct. Women chase what they value, desire, and fear losing. By detaching, a man allows her to step up and actively show her affection and commitment. When a woman pursues voluntarily, the connection becomes deeper, more genuine, and more balanced. In conclusion, detachment is one of the most effective ways to create authentic attraction. It is not about manipulation. It is about clarity, boundaries, and self-respect. A man who detaches shows strength, emotional intelligence, and independence, all of which make him irresistible. Women can't resist men who know their worth, control their energy, and let love flow naturally rather than forcing it. True attraction is drawn not to desperation, but to confidence, balance, and self-possession, qualities that only detachment can fully reveal.